5th?
8th. It's April.
April
No,
8th?
it's April 8th. Yeah.
It's April 8th. Welcome back to the Morning Brushback. I'm Dan Blewett. I'm here with Robert Stevens. Bobby, how you doing?
I'm feeling good this morning.
Yep. So our guest fell through. So I apologize if you came here today specifically to listen to the man behind Astro's Shame Tour. Just had some difficulties this morning and a very actually contentious conversation, which I'm not going to get into. But anyway, so that fell through. No big deal. So we're going to carry on today. Bobby, what's the latest on? I think we need to start off with one of your conspiracy theories. So coronavirus, you have a million of them. You probably don't think we went to the moon, or maybe the moon is made of cheese. What do you have?
Super moon yesterday.
What do you have? What do you have for us?
Well, did you see the super moon yesterday?
No, I live in a little dungeon of solitude. I did not see the moon.
The moon is visible from all areas of the world, and there's no pollution. There's no pollution now.
Oh, I've heard that. There's no car wrecks. There's like no crime. It's just like we're in a utopian society, except life is terrible.
It's a blessing in disguise, right? You could see the stars at night. This is like we're like living in paradise, except we're boxed in.
Yeah, so that's accurate.
I could get into a lot of conspiracies. I mean, I'm reading a lot about underground tunnels and trafficking of kids currently in all these major cities where there's earthquakes going on. If you want to get into that a little bit, that might be a little too deep for somebody up at 8 a.m. Central Time listening to a baseball podcast.
Yeah, it's not ideal. For those of you listening who just heard me cough, I've had my cough for over a month, so don't worry too much about me.
Conspiracy.
I don't think it's coronavirus, but I've been kicking around just okay. So let's talk a little bit about. So there's this Mlb Biodome idea you said that's potentially they're thinking about getting baseball going in Arizona.
Yeah. So the idea behind it is to have all the major league teams there without having a schedule put into place. Essentially, right now, you're trying to just eliminate as much exposure to anybody that's involved in the games, the clubhouse people, the front office staff, and just try and have some kind of season. What do you think about that? I've got some ideas on what that might look like, but what do you think about essentially a biodome of baseball season?
Well, if Pauly Shore's there, let's just cancel the season. Number one. Number two, I don't know. I think this whole thing is unprecedented. Obviously, I mean that goes without saying, but I'm not sure if there's. I mean, I think last week's guest Win, he brought up an interesting idea, which was that potentially, maybe there's like a pay-per-view thing, like just pay-per-view for a game and it's played without fans in an empty stadium. I don't know. I mean, I think the precautions. It's going to be really tough to get people in a big open public space, right? So how do we get away from that? I'm not really sure. And you just want to prevent resurgence of this drug or this disease, and it's just not potentially. I don't know. I think we're all just still wondering right now, how much worse is this going to get, and then is baseball going to be back, and if so, in what capacity? Because I think when this whole thing started and they quickly shut down the Ivy League, which was obviously those were all the right calls. I think we were also kind of wondering, like, well, most of these baseball games have like 100 people at them, even D1. Like, is it really that necessary to like stop baseball? Like, we just have the teams go to the field and all that, but knowing what we now know about the easy transmissibility of the coronavirus, it's just like everyone on the ball field is going to have it. Like, you slide in a second, yeah, he's out, but now you got coronavirus. Then you're rounding third. Now the third baseman, you slap hands with the third base coach. He's got coronavirus. Like, it's just you hit a dinger, you give it to like 11 people. So I don't know. It's clearly problematic. I mean, what's your gut tell you about when we're going to get back to it?
I think there's going to be some heavy pushback from a lot of people after the April 30th date comes and goes. I know April 30th is pretty much across the country, everyone stay in place mandate. I think there really going to be some pushback from especially from younger people, not necessarily 20s, but people under 50 years old that are now unemployed for 2.5 months. I think they're going to be willing to risk, any contamination, any transmission of the disease, purely to get back to some, get out of poverty, essentially. Because some of these people, $1,200 is great. $1,200 is, probably realistic for 300 million people, but it's not realistic to live on for 2.5 months. I think you're going to see some real, people are right now. I think they're kind of in that, I don't want to say honeymoon phase, because it is getting a little restless staying in the house, but
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's a honeymoon phase of people are enjoying, probably a little bit like relaxing, maybe spending time with family that they've been working 50, 60 hours a week. But, poverty is a terrible disease. And
Well, it's not a disease. It's an economic position. It's not
a social disease.
No, it's not. We can't call everything a disease. It's just patently not a disease.
Dan,
it's an
we
economic
have
condition.
a podcast purely to label things how we feel like it.
I am not going to participate in that. Well, this is not fake news media. This is real. Whatever this is, it's definitely not news media.
Well, speaking of fake news, did you vote in my poll yesterday?
No, I hated your poll. It was what? Who do you trust the least?
Who do you trust the least? Hold on.
Bill Gates, I'll read CNN,
China,
two others.
China, or Carol Baskin.
I have no stake in Carol Baskin because I don't watch the Tiger King, as we discussed.
She's leading the poll right now. 80 votes. She's got 38%.
Why is Bill Gates on there? Just as a red herring or what?
I don't trust Bill Gates. He's a smug bastard.
He's not a smug bastard. He's one of the, I think, most genuine. Like, what evidence do you have that he's smug? I mean, I guess that's an opinion, but it's not. I've never seen any evidence of him being smug.
Well, this is the Bill Gates rabbit hole. You got to go down, research some Bill Gates. I don't like. When did Bill Gates become the authority on vaccines and medicine? When did he get his doctorate?
Are you saying this from the guy who's like on board with all of Fox News peddling, and the president becoming the experts on hydroxychloroquine?
I don't think anybody's an expert on it. I think it's
doctors are.
I don't know. I think it's a reasonable suggestion that if it's
doctors are.
Oh, doctors. Well, Bill Gates isn't a doctor. That's my point,
let's go through the list of people who are not an expert on hydroxychloroquine. Number one, President Trump. Vice President Pence. That idiot Navarro, whoever that is.
Who's that?
Jared Kushner, the child. All those people. None of them are experts.
Also,
Ingram, any of those people. None of them are experts on it.
Bill Gates.
So Bill Gates is a philanthropist. He has lots of money in a foundation, and what he does, and the reason I don't know if you call him an expert. I'm not sure if that's the term I give him, but he spends pretty much his entire life now trying to help people in other countries.
I disagree with that. I don't think Bill Gates is helping much of anything.
What evidence do you support that?
I'm very anti Bill Gates.
Why?
Because I don't believe if you look at who his
but here's what I don't want to hear out of your mouth. I don't want to hear, but I don't believe. That's not evidence.
Okay.
That's just
all right.
Like saying,
follow the money, right? Bill Gates's foundation invests almost extensively in a lot of pharmaceutical companies. Bill Gates has, now you forgive me, I'm not prepared in my list of my hatred of Bill Gates. But Bill Gates has he had Project 201, which was basically a simulation of if a pandemic were to sweep through, the world, what it might look like. He's also been on the record saying that we need to depopulize the world, and a major pandemic or virus would be the best way to do that. That is my word. I mean, there's just more stuff about Bill Gates. It's, for as much good as he might be perceived to do, I really think of everything that I look through about Bill Gates, which I actually do. I just don't trust him. I saw a funny meme yesterday that said he couldn't protect Windows from viruses. How is he going to protect the world population from virus? Which I thought was pretty funny. I just don't trust Bill Gates. And maybe I'm in the minority, but
You're definitely in the minority.
that's fine. But Bill Gates gets a lot of, I don't know why he's getting a lot of credit for leading the charge on vaccines and medicine when this guy clearly is not an expert in any of that. He's an expert in computers, just as as you would be an expert in baseball. And
He's been devoting his life for a number of years. I don't have any idea what the number is, but a number of years on like malaria drugs for one, and all these other things. And his foundation's helping to develop some of these.
Yeah, but are they?
Do you think? What do you think? Like deep down, he's got some sinister ulterior motive, and that he's going to come out with a
I do.
flamethrower in 20
I think
years?
I think the virus benefits him, and in like the pushing of like vaccine, because he's got money invested in these companies that are developing this vaccine. I don't think it's kosher what he's doing, and it's just odd.
What's his end game? To get like some
I
more money? The guy's already got multiple $billion. Like,
Yeah, but money to people that have that much money feel like it's more power. Like if he
then
was,
why wouldn't he continue being in business rather than being in philanthropy, having a foundation?
because I don't know. I can't tell you why he
I mean,
does
I
anything he
just don't
does.
think any of that adds up. I don't think.
I
I
think it
think there's
adds
other
up a
people you could.
lot. I think it adds
Really?
up a
You
lot.
really
Yeah, I
think
mean, just
so?
from research, I've gone down the Bill Gates rabbit hole. Like I really don't trust it.
You don't
There's
trust
too many
anything. You don't trust any pharmaceutical companies. You don't
No,
trust
I
any
don't.
doctors.
I don't. Well, doctors is a different story. There's a difference between trusting and like I trust that doctors are trying to, you go to the doctor, they're trying to make you better. I totally trust that. I just don't think that what some of these people have been taught or what they're pushing is necessarily healthy or correct. So I'm going to question a lot of things. I think it's healthy to question a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but
I
what?
don't think it's
So what's your background in medical? Like, what gives you the license to say the doctors are pushing the wrong things? Not
It
to mention
doesn't.
that
It's an opinion.
everyone
These
from
are opinions. I'm not saying I'm an expert on any of this stuff. This is my
you told me
opinion.
you're an expert on vaccines when you're saying how you don't
Well,
believe
Dan,
vaccines are safe.
I'm an expert on a lot of
You're
things. I don't think vaccines
you're
are
the
safe.
farthest thing from an expert on most things.
Hey, to MD and Northern Illinois University bachelor's degree. Um, I'm not an expert on vaccines, but like I read a lot, and have a what I would consider a healthy skepticism on the safety of them. That's not to say they're not safe. Like obviously, plenty of people have been vaccinated and it's safe, but the fact that it's not 100% and that there's a lot of anecdotes, stories of people that their kids get vaccines and then immediately their health goes to takes a turn for the worse. That's the amount of aluminum that has been known to be in vaccines is a highly concentrated amount that would be unsafe for someone of our size, close to 200 pounds, let alone a child. I don't think if you want to vaccinate your child or you want to believe Bill
What's your
Gates, like
but like things like
totally
that, like is that 100% true, or what's your
the
source
aluminum.
of that information on aluminum? Yeah.
I
I mean,
I could I'd have to
have
pull
you
it. I'd
really
have to
fact
pull it
checked
up.
that? Have you really fact
Yes,
checked that, or is
yes,
that some just
yes.
like dark
That's a
web?
fact. No, that's a fact. The amount of aluminum in a vaccine is if you were exposed to that amount of aluminum, it would be considered an unsafe amount.
Why would the FDA approve that?
Vaccines are the only drug administered by doctors that you're not held accountable. So if the doctor prescribes you something that's incorrect, makes you more sick, you can sue that doctor, right, for malpractice. Vaccines, you cannot. It's the only thing you can't. If you have complications because of getting a vaccine, it's the only thing you cannot sue or get retribution for.
So let
Which makes it
let me
odd.
read a line from the CDC.gov. Why is an adjuvant, or what is an adjuvant, and why is it added to a vaccine? So an adjuvant is an ingredient used in some vaccines that help create a stronger immune response in people receiving them. So the aluminum that they add, I suppose, is an adjuvant. So aluminum salts, such as aluminum hydroxide, have been used safely in vaccines for more than 70 years. And so many people have taken these, so many people. So it's not just aluminum, it's these different compounds of aluminum. So you can't just say like aluminum, like eating some tinfoil is the same as.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
you sure that these are actually harming people? You can't just conflate the aluminum adjuvant with aluminum.
I lost you on the beginning part of that. It froze on me.
So aluminum adjuvants are things added to vaccines to help them give a stronger immune response. They've been used since the 1930s. So are we sure, Bobby, that these vaccine additives are harmful?
We're not sure, but
okay.
But flip that. But I'm just saying
you can't say that
unsure.
aluminum. Yeah, you can say about literally everything.
True.
I have this
I agree.
Fairlife dairy creamer. Has like non-fat milk, cream, sugar flavors. Very sure this isn't harming me, but also not completely unsure. You don't know.
You're not sure.
But if you take that agnostic point of view, like you literally can't know anything in this world. But when you're saying aluminum, they talk about the aluminum in deodorant, right? Aluminum is used in antiperspirants because it reacts and it creates that plug that helps plug sweat glands to like reduce your sweating, right?
Right.
That's not the same thing that's in those vaccines necessarily. I don't actually know exactly what's in each, but you can't just say blanket aluminum is harmful. There's some compound of aluminum in this, therefore it's harmful. Like, I don't know enough about the chemistry, neither do you.
I don't.
So when these people are going to claim this stuff, this is how people do this. They say there's this substance that's been known to cause cancer in this, but then it's like there's a million different derivatives of different things. And who's to say that aluminum adjuvant that they put in vaccines is actually harmful? Billions of people have been vaccinated using those aluminum adjuvants? No. Billions for sure. Polio since the 1930s. Polio, malaria, all these like vaccines.
I feel like you're
measles.
You're making my point is that you're skeptical of what I'm saying, which is good. Like, you should question what I'm saying.
I am skeptical of things.
But I don't trust what everybody else is saying. Like, here's my question is, how is it unsafe to have a skepticism of, if I blindly believe everything I'm told about, from the government, I'm going to be,
which you mostly do.
No, I don't. I believe very little of what my government tells me. What my interpretation of the information is obviously different than yours, but I don't really believe what I'm being told. Like we've been told, like, the World Health Organization, listen to their recommendation. The WHO recommended that the U.S. not close its borders or not shut off travel, as late as February. That was like a recommendation from the WHO. Now, do I think that they're trying to do harm? I don't know. But if you
why would they be trying to do harm? Like, that's ridiculous.
WHO is got a lot of money funded from China. China's communist, which is why China was in my poll.
Come on.
This podcast is turning into everything I wanted.
Most people, here's the thing, like, most people, you need to give most people the benefit of the doubt.
True. Very true.
And you need to take a lot of things at face value. There is not nearly as much. I mean, there's definitely back dealing in lots of areas, like you see it in the Trump administration, like pretty plainly. But there's back dealing not as everywhere. Yeah, but is the World Health Organization secretly trying to destroy America? I don't think so.
Are they? But are they?
The benefit of the doubt.
But
who
here? Let me just ask this question.
There? Okay,
I don't know.
Ahead.
I have no idea. Let me ask the question. Does it? If you're on the board of World Health of the WHO, is it not a realistic question to propose to your board or whatever? How do we stop growing so rapidly as a world population because we can't sustain this rapid growth? Maybe like it's well documented out there that like depopulation and getting world population under control has been like put out there by not only Bill Gates but discussed in circles where, like, we're 8 billion people in the world. Like, can we sustain that amount of activity with that many people needing so many resources without maybe depopulizing and getting down? Would the world function better at a population of 4 billion? I don't know. I just have a healthy, I think what I consider a skepticism. Like if I tell you something, I assume you're going to go research because you're a smart guy. Like same thing with me. Like if you're going
Well,
to
I have a
tell
lot
me
of things. I have a
something,
lot of things to do. But yeah, I mean, I'm
well,
not going down the rabbit hole of.
yeah. So that's the thing is if I have an agenda, let's just assume I have an agenda about something I tell you, anything. Most people are too busy to go down the rabbit hole and research anything, which is fair. Like everyone's got lives, you know. If you turn the TV off, you pretty much are cut off from what's going on in the world. You take social media out, you turn the TV off, like you're just going to live your day-to-day life. So if you're told something and you don't have the time to research it, you're going to believe it, which is fair. Like it's no knock on anybody. But if you're going to go down some of these rabbit holes, you're going to see odd, branches off of the topic that tie in a little too smoothly, that, that lead you to places where it doesn't, something isn't totally right. And money is the main factor. And I don't know, I don't know what Bill Gates's motive may be. Maybe Bill Gates is just the greatest person in the world. Just from seeing interviews and him conducting these very odd, the event 201 and stuff like that. It's just something is odd about it. Something doesn't make it seem like it's almost like he's ready and he wants some kind of depopulizing, virus or pandemic, which is, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and whatever. I die on my molehill of, on Morning Brushback, but it's if I'm, I think it doesn't hurt any to question some of this stuff.
I'm not sure the context of the Bill Gates quote about reducing population growth, but he said, over this decade, we believe unbelievable progress can be made in both inventing new vaccines and making sure they get out to all the children who need them. We only need about 6 or 7 more, and then you would have all the tools to reduce childhood death, reduce population growth, and everything. The stability, the environment benefits from that.
Yeah, but what does that mean? That's a good quote. That's a good quote. Reduce population growth. I don't know, like what that's an odd statement. No.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't take that. That quote doesn't fit anything out of context, except if you read the rest of it. If you just take out if you take out those 3 words, you can say, ooh, nefarious 3 words, reduce population growth. But if you read the whole quote, number 1, even completely out of context, it says progress can be made inventing new vaccines and making sure they get out to children who need them, which is obviously implying helping children avoid diseases and death.
Sure.
And then everything, the stability of the environment, we reduce childhood death and everything, the stability and environment benefits from that. So clearly he's not using vaccines to increase childhood death. He says to reduce childhood death. So we need the rest of that video clip, which I don't know where it is. I'm not going to search right now.
But those 3 words,
you can't take those 3 words. You can't take those 3 words out of context and just say,
I'm taking them in context like that.
That's not in context. Sure, there's no nefarious context in that quote. He's saying
it's an odd thing to slip in there, though. Why would he say that?
He obviously has some broader meaning. If you probably listened to the whole clip, but neither of us have.
But that's the quote. You're reading me the quote, and I'm interpreting that quote as reducing childhood death, which I have questions about. Are children dying from what they're getting vaccinated from? So
they don't have vaccines. No, they lack vaccines.
Okay, but I'm saying the vaccines that have been developed, like your parents were vaccinated with about 8 vaccines, something like that. Like children today get upwards of 46 vaccines. So were those 38 new vaccines, were they being developed to stop childhood death? And were childhood deaths at much higher because of those diseases before the vaccine was developed? A lot of questions. I just asked 3 questions about that one statement. I don't know anything about it. I really don't. I have no idea what those new vaccines are, or like the 6 to 7 new vaccines that he wants to develop. Like, what are those vaccines? I questioned making a coronavirus vaccine because we didn't make a swine flu vaccine, and swine flu was 60 million people in the US got it. 1 in 5 people got it. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a swine flu vaccine. Maybe there needs to be. I haven't heard of swine flu like reoccurring. It's just, it's odd. Like I don't know if I don't trust personally what Bill Gates says at surface level. I would want to dig deeper on a lot of the stuff that he does say, and maybe
No, so
maybe he's totally like you said, maybe he's on your side, or maybe I should come to your side and just believe him at face value. But maybe
well
I shouldn't.
again, within that quote, there was no nefarious context. And reading further, it's basically saying that a lot of families where disease and childhood death is rampant, they tend to have 7, 8, 9, 10 children because they know some of them will not survive. And now if we
Yeah,
can
but
reduce childhood mortality rate, now they can have smaller families. And it counterintuitively, and he says that a number of times, he's also quoted saying it's counterintuitive, but when we reduce childhood mortality rate, now families can have smaller families and the population doesn't grow as fast. So
yeah, but does that make sense to you?
okay,
Like, let me paint the picture. Like, let's say I'm a family and I have a high infant mortality rate history. Like, I want 3 kids. So, am I going to have 6 in hopes that 3 of them survive? Probably not. Like, I'm going to have 3, and if a child dies, like, God forbid, I would probably have another one. So I don't know how much sense that makes. Like, are people just pumping out kids in hopes
but
that
that's
a
not, I don't
percentage of
think
them
how, but I don't think
survive? But
that's
that's
how children die in some of these countries. I don't think it's just like, oh, I had one and he passed away or she passed away. It's when they're 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, I mean, and I think just it seems like the birth just keeps continuing. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, but again, in the context of that one quote, and then with a little further context of him explaining how it's counterintuitive, like there's nothing nefarious in Bill Gates trying to
Yeah,
vaccinate
I
children
don't
to
trust
reduce
him.
childhood death. Yeah, but see, that's
The big
where we get
thing.
here.
So, but
Like,
he did not vaccinate his own kids. Why? That's Danny.
I don't know, and I don't know that that's true, and I don't
That's a true
honestly.
that's a true statement.
Well, the important thing here is that I don't want to keep talking about this.
Oh, jeez. All
But
right,
what I
let's move
do,
on. Let's
but
move
what
on.
I do want to talk about is, um, how do you feel like sports are going to be impacted going forward? So, do you think football is going to happen on schedule? I think it probably is. I think training camp's probably going to be shortened or something.
Yeah.
But I think everyone is still like, okay, the worst is maybe still to come as far as infections and death, but then also where are we headed? Will all the major sports leagues get going at all? And will baseball, I mean, are they going to do a 90-game schedule? Are they going to do a 60-game schedule? Are they going to get anything in? Will they play till Christmas? I don't think they'll play till Christmas because they're going to
No.
overlap with football, as our guest Will Carroll said, and they're not going to win that battle with football very well.
No, they're not going to win the football battle. I think there is absolutely no doubt there's going to be some form of baseball this year. I think I'm in the minority of that. Um, there's going to be concessions made on both sides. Like the MLBPA is going to want to play because they're going to want their players to get the money. They're going to want the service time. They're going to want that revenue share because the MLBPA makes no money unless MLB makes money, obviously. But then they're also going to have to give on the kind of how Will said, the ramp up time. Like maybe you're only going to get 3 weeks of a modified spring training. And that's going to be the trade-off. It's like, look, we can't have both. You can't have a full baseball season and also a full ramp up period. Like there's got to be some give and take. Other sports, I don't think football is going to be affected at all. I don't think football can afford to be affected at all with the amount of money in television for football and the amount of money that pumps through these economies just based on football. Even if you play in front of nobody, I feel like it's almost going to have to, especially by September, go on as scheduled. Maybe
I mean,
their
they say
training
that, but
camp.
if one guy has it and he's out tackling all the other fellows, he's like, now you have corona. Now you have, I mean, it's going to be a mess when now all of your team is infected. Then you don't have a season. Your season just is done. It's
I
done
don't
right
disagree
there.
with you. I don't disagree
Yeah.
with you that it may be
I
dangerous.
appreciate that you don't disagree with me. Thank you.
But
this is making progress.
But I don't, if I'm put myself in a I'm a 33-year-old football player, like I'm on my last legs, or I think there's gonna be a lot of pushback from
Your
some of
last
these
legs
guys.
at 33? Your last
In
legs?
football? Oh yeah. Those guys
Off to
are
the
done
glue
at
factory already?
those guys are done at 33. Well, unless you put me at left tackle, I'm good
Yeah, you'd be
footwork.
lucky to make it a 33.
I just don't think you're gonna. I, I think you're gonna have a lot of resistance from the players. I think players, especially by that time, are gonna want to play. And if that's the case, I think you have to weigh the good with the bad. And I think they're gonna play. I really do think they're gonna play. I don't think you can hold people out of work and out of everyday life uh, that long without some pushback. I don't want to say revolt, but some major pushback. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. The safety of it and the safety of anything like football in general is a dangerous game. Um, but there's this is their livelihood, and these guys have a small window. Football specifically have a small window to make money. You know, Baseball's got starting to get a smaller window. Win said it. When we were talking, like, these guys come into the league younger and they get out younger. Like, to lose a full year, to lose all that revenue, 10 figures of revenue, like, you're you're playing with a lot of livelihoods. I think, you know, as we get closer to that, I think it's going to be more and more people are going to be flipping to the side of, like, we need to try and get back to normal. Like, we really need to try and start, ramping back up the economy and day-to-day life.
Yeah. So to your points, I mean, we can't control any of this. So I know you want to make hay while it's what's the saying? You got to
Strike while the iron's hot.
harvest while there's hay, or make hay when. So I don't remember Midwest sayings, but I don't think we can control it. And yeah, I agree. It's clearly untenable, the economic situation, right? I mean, I think it was an insensitive thing to be talking about 2 weeks ago, and even still now, like, hey, old people, you should go back to work because you want to make sure your grandkids have a good economic situation here in America. So go sack, like, it's an asinine thing to say. Like, you need to go
Sure.
back to work so the younger generation can live. Like, that's ridiculous. No one wants that. But it's very realistic that this situation it can't go on forever. But we also just don't necessarily have control of that, because if it becomes this crazy outbreak again, or just doesn't flatten, I mean, then life's not going to go on as normal. And it's clear now this is not just the flu, right? Like, people, the respiratory problems and the need for ventilators and all that stuff, it's not just the flu. Like, I have asthma. It's not going to be just like the flu for me. So, I mean, with all that, and then you start to put all these athletes close together, like we said, I mean, if one guy on the team gets it, it's going to be a mess. We know how infectious it is.
Sure. It's going to be a mess,
So,
and a lot is going to depend, like, if any of those treatments work. How effective some of those treatments may be. There's I was reading last night. There's a country, I want to say it's Sweden, but I'm not sure. I was trying to look it up while you were talking here, that basically said life is going to stay normal. Um, if you're at a higher risk, if you're in these, they gave their categories. If you're over 65, if you got autoimmune issues, you know, you should practice staying at home. But everybody else, like, go to work, and it's going to be, practice a little social distancing, but they didn't shut down their economy. I think it was Sweden, and they only reported currently up to, I think it's like 611 cases out of their 10 million people, which is, it's interesting because I think they're the only country that's doing it that way. I'm not saying that the US should do it that way. It's just a difference, it's a different look on how they're handling it. And maybe Sweden's got a younger population. Maybe, for maybe something else is going on in Sweden that we don't know. But I think a lot of the world is going to shift to that point and say, at some point, like, we need to get back to work. Like, the $1,200 we received from the government was great, but it's not keeping us afloat. Like, we need to try and, I'm not saying to jumpstart the economy for any reason, specifically. Just, I think people need to get back into their day-to-day life, and kind of, if you are at one of those higher risks, then you should stay home, and you should spend a little bit more, wait a little longer before you get back out into the workforce. But if you're a healthy 30-year-old, and you're not going to endanger anybody at your home that's at risk, I think a lot of people are going to want to go back to work. I think they're going to demand to go back to work. And I don't know if that's
Yeah,
correct or not. I don't know.
I don't know either. It really is. It really is difficult. I mean, now the one thing you wonder is, okay, if it flattens a bit, and like, for example, right now, my sister sent me. She's mailing me a face mask, and I asked her, a la Bobby Stevens. I said, "Hey, where'd this mask come from? How do I know it's not like a smallpox blanket? How do I know it's not been just, this could be a part
Yeah,
of a bigger conspiracy?
that's right.
This is where you go, Bob. This
This is
is
what
this they did
happens.
they wanted the masks. Whoever they wanted the masks, and now the masks are all coming from a central supply from a planet in outer space where they've infected them with the second strain.
They're coming.
That's what this all is.
They're coming from China.
Just like smallpox blankets. Um, no, but eh, you know, well, right now I can't buy hand sanitizer. Like, can anyone? No.
No.
I bought a bottle of bleach, which was extremely exciting. I mean, it's a highlight of my year. My sister mailed me some sanitizing, cleaner for my whatever. Can't buy gloves, can't buy any of that stuff. And obviously,
Yeah.
hospital workers who need it vastly more than the regular population, they're struggling to get their PPE as well. Like, they're running out. Apparently, the federal stockpile isn't for the states, which the states just make up the country. Like, that was the most baffling statement by Mr. Kushner. Made no sense. This is our stockpile. Like, anyway, so it's when life gets back to normal, it's not going to be normal, right? We've talked about not shaking hands and just like extra precautions. And how do we get back to regular life? And how do you coexist without passing this on? And one of the things they've been talking about is that it can spread through much smaller, perhaps aerosolized droplets,
Yeah.
rather than just me coughing straight into your mouth, which if you're here, I would definitely do. As you're talking about Bill Gates' nefarious schemes, I just cough straight in your mouth. But it was funny because I was talking to my dad about this a couple of weeks ago as I was jogging, and I jogged past a person who was smoking. And obviously, your breath escapes your body, and we all have like this, I think, idea of what happens when we breathe or when we fart, that it's just like it like goes out in front of you. But especially when you think about a fart, it's out the other end, like not close to your nose, but you smell it instantly. It's like fascinating. It's like, how did that get to my nose that fast? It's like shooting around like the speed of fart light. You know what I mean? And so,
fart light.
but my point is that the travel of gases leaving our body, mostly our mouths, it goes a lot farther and faster than you think. And so when you start to look at a smoker, you can see it obviously because there's those little tiny particulates. That's what smoke is. And so I'm running, and I see, a guy like just exhales. He's not breathing in any particular way, just smoking a cigarette. And I run past and I smell some of it and I go through a little bit of it. And I'm like, that's what everyone's breath is like. Not just his. His is just like, it's got like a tracer in it. Like the smoke is just a tracer, right? It shows where his breath is. And so then you start to think, well, if there's coronavirus in that breath, I just inhaled it. I just ate it. Like it was a meal, right?
Sure.
So, and they're saying that that's kind of like it can exist in smaller aerosolized droplets than we realize, but at the same time they said, this is probably not how you're getting it, because if he was, and my dad and I talk about this as well, if it was being transmitted that easily, like just from being close enough to someone who's just talking, then so many more people would probably have it by now. Like it'd just be everyone, literally everyone would have it. Because you go to the grocery store, if that was the case, literally every person in that grocery store would be infected by just a couple of people. I mean, you just can't get around walking by somebody. So that, that's why we should wear masks, because it's just going to reduce, probably it's going to catch some of it. It's going to reduce the, the radius that we're breathing all this on each other. So that makes sense. But I think that's just part of the question is, how much do we really need to protect ourselves? How far what is the radius of safety? If we have gloves, if we really touch something, sanitize our hands, and then go back to our business, how protected are we? Right. I think that's a big part of it. So it's just really tough to know like how quickly we could get back to normal. And it's a lot of unknowns. It's a really strange time for unknowns.
So getting back to normal is a good point. And I'll ask you this, because I had a discussion with a guy a few weeks ago, kind of at the beginning stages of what this was. College, colleges are doing e-learning, like high schools to an extent are doing whatever they can for e-learning. But he had a daughter at a pretty prominent university in the Northeast, and they sent them home beginning of April or beginning of March, and they're doing all e-learning. Like she's going to finish her semester e-learning. And my question was, I wasn't like attacking like him or the school or anything. I just said, I go, so is that pretty much validating University of Phoenix's model? And he's a lawyer, so he's a highly educated person. I said, is that validating the University of Phoenix's model? I go, is that basically devaluing universities around the country, the fact that they can basically e-learn and do it from, like, she's living in Chicago and her school's in New York, she can do it from Chicago. By all accounts, she could get her degree sitting in her home in Chicago. I know people, when University of Phoenix came out, kind of like scoffed at what it was, and online learning, like, what do you
throw the resumes in the trash?
Yeah, no one's learning. But now is that validating the online learning? Like, instead of University of Phoenix, if it says Penn University on that, and nobody knows if you were sat in the classroom for 4 years or if you sat on your couch for 4 years, I think college life and college learning is drastically.
That's a good question. And you're breaking up there a little bit. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was trying to fill the gap with usable audio in the meantime while you're being a robot. Well, real quick, I just want to throw out there, if you're listening on YouTube or if you're listening on Twitter, I'm checking the feed. So if you have something we can talk through, definitely put it on there, whether it's baseball related, softball related, coronavirus. Obviously, we're off today on different topics, but feel free to comment through Periscope or through YouTube. I'll be honest with everyone, this live streaming thing, like, I'm pretty good with technology. Bobby, I think you're pretty good with technology. I mean, you've been super fast as we sort of tag team this whole process, but live streaming is confusing. Our videos have been like kind of correct on our YouTube channel and then kind of not. It's been like shaky. This is like a unique animal. I don't know. I'm still working through it, but we've kind of figured out the comments now. So if you're on Periscope, if you're on Twitter, you can obviously leave a Twitter comment. If you're on Periscope, which is an app for your phone, so if you're an old person, Joe, if you're listening, I'm talking to you. So Joe, go ahead and download Periscope app. And from there, you can comment, and there's like a live chat stream. Although I don't really see it right there right now. And then YouTube, you can comment on live on the video. So there's a couple guys, Kyle and Mr. Avocado. What's up? So we're going to be monitoring that because we want to do a good job of making this, like, the reason this is live is in part that we can interact with you. So anyway, so what were you talking about? I forgot.
Colleges. So, like, how do you see, other than a select few majors, medicine and, probably engineering, something where you have to get hands-on instruction, if you're getting a comms degree or, a business admin degree, do you need to be in the classroom? How much is this going to validate e-learning and validate online, higher education more now that everybody's doing it?
I think everyone right now is just remiss to the fact that online learning is just not as effective as in-person learning. I think that's number one, because from what I've heard, the experience just has not been great, right? I think it's just, there's something to be, a lot left to be desired. And I have online courses. So if you're out there and you don't know what I do on the web, I support myself a lot of different ways, but I sell online courses for baseball and softball. So I have a throwing course, I have a pitching course, I have lots of different courses that Bobby owns the baseball academy. I'm a former baseball academy owner. And so you learn a lot of stuff over the years. And so when I sold my academy in August, my goal was like, hey, I'm going to continue to do this and impact really like a broader range of people by taking the stuff I learned, doing 3,000-4,000 lessons over a period of time and taking that knowledge and making it systemized into an online learning thing. Wonderful. So if you're in some remote part of the country, you can you can take my course and you can go through it and all that stuff. And this is not a plug, but I'll tell you, it's just not the same as being there with me in person. It just isn't. Now, It's good. It's the system, but there's a lot put on you. The onus is put on you. You have to go through the videos. You have to learn to self-coach. You have to be really disciplined and go through it. And you do need to interact with me. And it works the best when people will do my package where we do some Zoom calls here and there. And even then, there's just stuff lost in translation, especially with something as physical as teaching a sports skill. And video is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can break things down all different ways. But I'll just tell you right now that having done this for a couple of years, it's just not the same. Now, sitting in a classroom is very different than teaching a pitching mechanics or teaching a softball player how to throw. Those are very, very different. And so, sure, if you're not there with the athlete to really help them through it, there's going to be a loss. But as far as sitting in a classroom, where when I was in college, I'm just, in the back of the room like this for 40 minutes, is that significantly different than a Zoom call where you're just doing the same thing, but you're just like not wearing pants and you have coffee and you can text and do whatever you want to do and no one knows? I don't think there's as big a difference. But, with college, and correct me if I'm wrong, college is just a really important time to grow up, right? And I think the social aspect, which is why the asinine Liberty University founder called everyone back. He's like, I don't want kids to miss their college experience. Like, great. Well, they're all going to be sick. So wonderful. But that's a big part of it. You just grow up a lot between 18 and 22. I don't think online learning is the same thing. And I think it just fits a certain amount of people. I mean, what did you learn, Bobby? I mean,
I learned nothing in college.
You learned nothing in college. Well,
obviously,
yeah,
but
naturally.
I think you hit it on the head. It's social, right? You move out of your house, you live on your own, you learn how to fend for yourself, you do your own laundry, you cook your own food, you become an adult in a structured environment. Like you're not fully an adult. You didn't get kicked out of your house at 18 and find a job, pay your rent, figure it out life. You're in a structured environment. You've got your dorm room, you've got you can make your own food, you can get a meal plan. It's like that bridge to the real world for a lot of people, and you get to grow up and you get to make friends and interact and whatever. Aside from the social aspect, the learning aspect, I don't know what you would have done if you didn't play baseball in college. I can't say what I would have done. I just think that I probably would have maybe went into a trade, or I'm not 100% sure I would have went to a four-year university similar to what I did because I played baseball. And I loved what I did. I loved college. I thought it was great. I'd go back to college and I'd live that life again for 4 years or 3 years. But, junior college, with those first 2 years of college, that, those regular classes, your English 101 and your, intro to whatever, like, it makes more sense in my head to take it at a junior college, or maybe to take it at an online course to save money. And, the world's changing in a lot of different ways. And I think, the way we learn and the way kids even learn in high school and grammar school has changed. They've got their laptop in front of them, even though they're in a classroom with somebody talking to them and teaching them. So, to push that to 18 to 22-year-olds or adults, do they even need to be in that classroom? And I totally agree with you that, I can teach somebody something better in person than I could over a Zoom call or via phone or, an online learning, pamphlet. But is it going to make sense to bring people to those campuses? I mean, I think it's shining a light on, the business as a whole for universities, the tenure system for some of these professors, and the amount of classes you have to take that may not pertain to what your degree is going to end up being in. It's interesting. I don't know I don't know if there's a right answer. Maybe college is going to be exactly how it was before, and there's going to be no change. But it'd be interesting to see what if there's a shift, and if some people are just like, we don't need to go back. I can do all this from home, and I can work, and I can do college in my free time.
I could do college. I could do
college. For those of you that are just joining, this is coffee and Kahlua, so we're getting an early start today. So this has been fun so far. I'm ready. I got another 2 hours in me, Dan.
Do you? Because I don't. Well, so to your point, I agree that, and I think a lot of people agree that the college cost is it's broken and it's getting out of control. So You know, for me, so I'm a unique example because my degree was in philosophy, okay, with a double major in psychology. So you see, gee Willikers, Dan, you got a nice useful degree. Now, I actually found my degree extremely useful in the fact that I didn't know at the time, but I've been a relatively entrepreneurial human. So running my own business and then transitioning into my online business and just doing all these different things, my degree helped me a lot because philosophy helps you think critically, it helps you problem solve, it helps you convey ideas clearly, and this is how I can just pick Bobby's his sham conspiracy theories apart very easily because I can
Mm-mm.
think, in deductive ways. But so there's a lot of benefit in some of these liberal arts educations, and there's actually been reports of them coming back and resurging because employers realize this. Employers don't need to say, I need someone with a computer science degree for this computer science job. Now, obviously, having background, if they need a code, they do all sorts of stuff, fine. But employers are finding value in these liberal arts educations more and more because these people are just very competent. They're good thinkers, they're good problem solvers, they're good communicators, they can write well. And that's not going out of style. My point of this is that I think it's easier than ever to have a wide ranging education where you don't have to sit down and spend 30 grand to be in a program at college for, each year, where I'm self-taught in most of the stuff that I do today. I bought other people's online courses. I've been self-taught through a lot of the software that I use and all the stuff that I do on the web from diving into it. And I credit that to my degree but just like my nature. But at the same time, I think education's changing, and the value of a $1,500 3 credit class. I mean, well, I guess a 3 credit class is way more than that, right? I mean,
It's a
20
lot.
grand for it's yeah. I mean, $10,000 for 3 credits. Is that
No,
right for
no,
a?
it's probably
Well, you take 15 credits. So if your
it's about
tuition's,
$1,000 a credit, I would think.
yeah, why am I so, what's my flaw in my math here? So 15 credits, 30 credits a year, say it's 25 grand. So it's $800 a credit.
Yeah,
Wait, no, is that the right math?
yeah,
No.
that's close.
Yeah. So
You're close.
$800 a credit hour. Okay. So $800 goes a long way in e-learning. It goes a really long way.
Right.
With $800, like and this was advice for other people trying to start out in the fitness field. I told everyone as a former strength coach, don't spend all your money on these stupid certifications. There's a couple certifications that you need to be hired, to be
Mm-hmm.
a speaker if you want to be a speaker, whatever. There's a couple ones that, like the NSCA CSCS is an example. If you want to be a speaker somewhere, you probably need your CSCS at the minimum. Not always though. And then having a degree helps that, but having a degree in exercise science, for example, it's not always a door that's going to open more opportunities and more financial growth for you. So when I was still running my business, and I still do strength stuff, I still consider myself a strength coach. I'm still certified. I was asked, I think once in my entire career, if I was certified at all. And they certainly didn't ask me what my certification was because they don't know and they don't really care. They care
Right.
if you're competent. And so when I was talking to young people, I mean, sometimes you see these trainers with, I'm Dan Blewett, ASR 7UP CBF, like that was 7 Up. I have a can of 7 Up over there. Like they have a million things behind their name. And it's like, no one knows what those are. They don't necessarily make you more competent. And a lot of things that do make you more competent are the real world things, like going to a seminar, going to, a 2 or 3 day camp or something. And there's an amazing event that I'm yet to go to on the East Coast by Sorinex, the Sorinex company. They make awesome strength equipment. It's called Summer Strong. And a mentor of mine, Nick Tuminello, goes there. Everyone raves about it. That's like a big collaborative event that'll probably cost you $1,000 to go and be there or whatever. But you're going to be around people that have been doing it for forever, like people that I actually trained athletes for 20 years. And here's what the experience is like. Here's the relevant things you need to learn rather than here's what this textbook's going to tell you, right? We all know that real world application is really important. So
Right.
you need a foundation of both. But the question is, do we need $120,000 or $140,000 foundation in book learning? And that's what I think is getting really hard to swallow, because we can say, okay, well, if college is a lot of sitting there doing this for 4 years for 150 grand or for 120 grand, no thanks. I can do that at home and also spend my money in a lot of different ways, being an intern for someone and putting that money in your pocket and working. And there's just, it's getting less clear that the big ticket college expense is worth it. And
I
I think a
agree.
lot of that's, they've been talking about bloat from tenured professors and just lots of administrators and just lots of systems that increase the price without really increasing the quality of the product. And yeah, that was I know there's a roundabout way of explaining it, but me
Well,
knowing what I
and
know now,
yeah,
like, my mom, for example, maybe 3 years ago, I think it was when I just retired from baseball, she was saying, hey, well, maybe you should go back and, this helping me try to figure out what was next in my life. And she said, hey, well, why don't you go get your nutrition degree or maybe get a master's in this? I'm like, no, why would I do, well, like, why would I ever do
yeah,
that? It's going to put me, and you start thinking of your financial prospects. It's like, okay, that's going to take me negative $50,000. So what's the benefit? Is that going to put me positive $1 million? No, not in today's age.
no,
Absolutely not.
not
Not
even
for what I
close.
do. Like I already work for myself. It's just stealing 50 grand from me. There's literally no benefit to that unless I want to completely change fields and be in like the medical field or be a lawyer or be something that you have to have,
The
a degree, something
right.
like that to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, there's plenty of examples of the most successful people in the world, or dropping out of college, or what is it? Steve Jobs went to one semester of college, dropped out. Elon Musk is famous
Bill
for saying
Gates, Bill Gates, Bill
Bill
Gates,
Gates.
Bill
Well,
Gates, Bill Gates. Great guy, that, by the way,
it's not that he's
that
not
Bill
smart.
Gates.
I just think he's a snake. Well, Elon
You
Musk
have
has
no
a
evidence. You've
he's a
literally no
snake.
evidence he's a snake. You've literally
Hey,
no evidence.
I had a tweet that just popped up. I won't read it on air because it's a little graphic about Bill Gates. But then, like, Elon Musk, he's like, I didn't go to Harvard, but all the people that work for me did. So it's like, you're going to go to some of these schools, and yeah, you're like, Harvard degree matters. Like that's going to carry weight. You walk in with a resume that says Harvard, like, obviously you're an intelligent person. You're highly educated from based on the school you went to, but
For sure. For sure.
there's also benefits to real world, like you said, someone that's been in the field, someone that's gotten their hands dirty and done, been in the real world and survived, and has real life experience, as opposed to the sitting in the classroom with your hands folded like this, and you're, whatever. It's just a good, it's something to think about. It I think realistic uh it's a realistic avenue to explore if you're not necessarily going to school, like you said, for lawyer, medicine, or a sport, which would be a lot of the kids that I see, high school kids that are asking me about colleges. The one big thing I say is, can you afford it? Does it make sense financially for you to go to this school, even if you're going to play? Like, I'm all for playing baseball in college and playing a sport in college. I think that brings a lot of benefit to not only your resume, but to your development as a person, and time management skills and all those other things. But is it worth going to a small school that's going to cost you 60 grand a year to play a little bit of baseball? I don't know. That's not my decision
Yeah.
to make. I'm not the one that's going in debt. That's a really hard thing to give advice. And I have a kid, and we'll end on this. A kid just texted me. He's a junior college kid. He's a sophomore. And he asked me what I would do if I were him, and the options are basically stay at the junior college and play another year, even though he's got no classes left to take, transfer to a school and try and walk on, even though the roster sizes are going to be a lot larger and there's not going to be many spots, or email a bunch of schools and see if he can find a spot and with those same reasons, there's not a lot of spots and schools, he doesn't have a big resume for junior college. And the first thing I said to him was, what do you want to do? I said, I can't answer that. I'm not in the same position. My head for me personally is not in the same position as yours. Like, I always wanted to play professional baseball. So, my first instinct is, no, I don't want to stop playing and try and walk on. But at the same token, it's like, if I were you and not knowing how much you want to keep playing, I would probably try and walk on. So, there's not a good way to give advice in that situation, for me at least. I didn't have a good answer for him. I just tried to ask him questions to get him to his own answer. Uh, but that's a tough, it's tough to give advice on what would you do if you were me, because it's almost an impossible question. You don't know all the circumstances of anybody.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the important considerations, and there's obviously, as you were talking before, there's a laundry list of other jobs that are clearly college track. Like, for example, engineers, computer engineers, software developers, all, like, there's a lot of other jobs, like speech language pathologist, one that sticks out because I had a couple of friends back in Illinois who did that. There's a lot of other jobs, obviously, that are not just strictly medical or law, that if you run on that, you're going to do very, very well. Like, there's no poor engineers, there's no unemployed software engineers, right? So,
Right.
but to your point, I think part of it comes down to knowing whether you're the employee type or whether you're an entrepreneurial kind of type. I think that's an important discussion to have with yourself, because for me, I don't, and like, I'm not where I want to be, but at the same time, I don't feel like I have a cap on my income or my potential or whatever it is, because everything I do, I either do for a client and I'm passionate about it, or I'm doing it for myself and growing my own business, brand, whatever you want to call it. And so when there's something like this hits, if I was saddled with, like, say I got sick and got a lot of medical debt, there's a way for me to say, okay, how can I hustle and make more money than I'm making today? Whereas if you're an employee and this is the job that I have, and I'm in the corporate ladder, or I'm this, I'm that, and I'm making 77,000 a year, and next year I can count on a 3% raise, but this is my career, and I go home at the end of my 9 to 5, and that's that. You're very fixed at your income, and that can be scary. And I think that's the problem for a lot of people right now, where, and I mean, there's no shame in being an employee. Like my dad was an engineer. He put food on the table. I mean, he put all of us through college. He was an
Yeah.
entrepreneur and provided for our family, and I'm extremely thankful for his hard work. Same with my mom. But it also, I mean, the downside to being an employee is it caps your income and your income potential to a degree. Unless you're
Sure.
going to rise up and become CEO or CFO one day, you're going to be in your pay grade, and you're going to have to live within that. And then when you have stuff like this happen with coronavirus or something else, now you say, okay, well, I'm going to hopefully go back to that salary level, hopefully, but I now have all this extra debt. Or say I got out of college and I have 110,000 student debt, and now I'm going to make 55K, and that's it. And so you start looking at your bills and you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to pay my student loans. Like, here's the math. Here's how much I take in. This is the job that I have. This is the amount of debt that I have. Here's my living expenses. I'm just not going to be able to pay this off. Right. I think that's the scary thing that a lot of Americans get into. And so then as I start, as you talk to young kids and help them with their like future, and I give them counsel from my experiences, the goal is like to start to try to find something that you can do on the side, and don't just do it for today, but do it for, like, let's see where this goes. Right. And I know this podcast between us, this is a new endeavor for you, and you're learning new skills. You're doing a lot of the social media. You're doing a lot of all this other stuff. Who knows where you are in a year with this, right?
Right.
I went down this rabbit hole 3 years ago, and I was doing this with our business, Warbird Academy, 10 years ago. And so this is all led up to this point. Like, this is my 4th podcast, and it's still leading somewhere. So for the young people out there, even if you want to be a nurse, even if you want to be an engineer, even if you want to be an accountant, you should start doing something else, precisely because of these times where, like, even if I lost all my clients today, I make a certain amount of money that I don't have to actually do anything for. It's not a lot of money. It's not enough to like support me yet, but I have always some amount of money flowing in, and that's from some of my online endeavors. It's from some actually YouTube ads. It's from book revenue. I have 2 books out. I have an audiobook. There's lots of little trickles of streams of money that come in. And I think this is an important conversation to have. And you young people have so many more skills. You're starting way farther ahead than I was, or than you are now, Bobby.
Yep.
And start something now. Like, you look at some of these YouTubers that are famous, and this is why I love YouTube, and I see how much potential it has. You can take anyone, and this guy, Mark Quest Brownlee, is a great example. He has like 10 million followers. He's a beloved tech reviewer. He's a super well-spoken, smart guy, does great videos, just reviewing all the new phones, laptops, tech, whatever. If you hit search and go oldest to newest, you'll see his first video from when he was like 14, just sitting on his like kitchen table, talking about this new laptop that he got. Still very articulate, smart kid, but he wasn't afraid to just do this. And there was no clear payoff. He had no idea, I'm sure, that he was going to be a star making 50 grand every time you put out a new YouTube video, because that's basically how much you make with ad revenue and you have 10 million YouTube subscribers. Not to mention all the brand deals and just like he's making multi-millions of dollars per year. And he just started doing that because he was passionate about it and he wasn't afraid. And there's a lot of people out there who can draw, who can do little things that they don't think much of it. They don't think much about it. And my sister, if she's listening, which she's probably not, but she's one of those people. I think my sister's super talented in lots of quirky, interesting ways. If you just start doing something today, you never know where you might be in a year or two. It might spur off into something new. And you're like, wow, that's really my thing. Or you just like chip away and keep doing it. Maybe you start a blog, or maybe you start a YouTube channel, whatever. And now somewhere down the road, you're like, I can actually monetize this, or this can actually help me through this tough time. This can pay some of my bills. Like this can pay my rent, like whatever. And the world's going like that. I think this is kind of tying in back to the e-learning point, which is there's a million ways to make money not doing stuff in person. You can sit on your kitchen table and find ways to make money. There's tons of ways. You could start a website today about reviewing fish tanks, and you could go find affiliate marketing links from all these different fish tank companies. You could review them on Amazon, use Amazon links, because people look for fish tanks, right? This is just like one bizarre example, but you could have like the fish tank market cornered, where you don't actually produce anything. You don't actually sell anything. You just sell information and review stuff. And people go, oh yeah, thanks to this article of the 5 best fish tanks for a low budget, I'm going to click on this one. You go to Amazon, you buy it. The person who has that Amazon link, that website, they get 5% commission of a $700 fish tank, and you churn that over enough times and you make some money, and it just like comes on in and you don't have to do anything in the future. And so, especially if you have the goal of helping other people, like, hey, here's a bunch of info. Here's how to do this stuff. Also, here's the products that you need. Like, for example, like all this webcam stuff. I've been doing this for a little while, and there's definitely people that do it a lot better than me, but I like this crazy setup. So I have like this boom arm, and I have a mic. My microphone is actually just at a frame right here above me. And that's partly because my other mic was giving me some issues this morning. I have a camera, which is my webcam. That's why I look sharp. I have this audio recorder that it's plugged into that plugs into my nicer mic when I use that. I have this weird system. And a lot of people right now, for example, are trying to figure out, how do I make my webcam look better? Like, I'm doing Zoom calls for my company. I want to look sharp. I want to look professional. I want my audio to sound better. How do I do that? Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't done this, but I could. And I'm sure countless other people have. Put a blog post together. Hey, here's the options. If you want to be a little bit better for a $100 budget, here's what you should buy. If you want to make yourself look even better for a $300 budget, here's what you should buy. If you want to go all out, here's what a $2,000 or $1,000 like really great webcam solution looks like. And people go, oh, this is what I wanted. Like, I wanted to figure out how to do this thing better. And this is great. I'm going to go click. I want that webcam. It's easy for me. I just click that. And now they're cookied. And, when they make a sale, or they buy their webcam that I recommended, now I get a $4 commission or whatever. And that seems like an insignificant amount of money. But when you do that over time, you're helping people figure out, solve their problems. And you have just like a little flow of income. And then again, you just like never know where that goes at some point. You might eventually be like this revered tech reviewer or whatever it is, right? There's lots of stuff you could do. Right. Like, I think my sister could sell stickers or like handmade something or other. My sister's talented and quirky and good vibes and stuff like that. Like, you just never and you just got to try stuff. So, all right, I'm off my soapbox.
It's a good soapbox. I liked it.
I mean, just the world's changing, right? So like for young kids, just start doing stuff on the web. And this doesn't have to be for young kids. It could be anybody. Like, if this is your downtime, like you're not, say you're furloughed or you're laid off, which I know is really, really tough. And I've been through that period actually in the last just like year of like trying to figure out like what I'm going to do. as I left my other business. It's a hard, stressful time, but one thing you can do is potentially just explore what you want to do, right? Like, what else could you do on the side? Like, what could you start that maybe you both find meaning in and maybe you're passionate about, and there's an opportunity. So I don't know. There's a lot out there, and definitely learning is changing, and the college prospects are changing.
Definitely.
Well, Robert, we had a good impromptu episode today.
It was good. Next episode.
Speaking of which, tell me about your boom arm. I can see your mic suspended all up in your face.
$20 boom arm on Amazon. Yep. If you're looking for a boom arm, comment below. I'll give you the link. It's my first time using it. Looks good. I feel like I'm very professional.
It does look good. Yeah.
I'm really looking for the next, how to get a haircut during these trying times, because it's really I'm gonna let my facial hair grow out until my wife makes me shave it, but I really could use do you miss the things you take for granted, like a haircut and going outside?
Are people cutting hair? That's a good question.
No. Although the mayor of Chicago got her hair cut, and it was quite the issue that she had the gall to go get her hair cut while everybody else has to stay inside. So that'll be one of my talking points in 2023. She's getting haircuts. Look at this woman.
The audacity. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. If you were here on Twitter or YouTube, we appreciate you. Definitely check out the show on iTunes, Spotify. So if you want to catch up on our previous episodes, we usually upload them the same day. So you can find them all on Spotify, iTunes, any of your other podcast platforms. I'm not really sure what other ones there are. And yeah, so on Friday, we have a guest, Frank Alexander, who is the ATC for the Yankees team doctor. So he's seen a lot of high-level baseball players. So we're going to be talking about baseball injuries and softball injuries as well, because I want to talk about the softball side a little bit and demystify some of the myths around softball pitching in general, that these girls can like pitch a million pitches and just be fine. Like you can just throw all day, which is not the case. He says they see a lot of overuse injuries. So we're going to talk about that. Really good guy. And then we've got guests booked all the way out through April 24th so far. Had another one last night, and pretty good stable of minds coming on the show. So we're excited. So thank you again for being here. Bobby, send us out.
Dan, it was fun. We'll see everybody Friday.
All right.